Welcome, everybody, to episode 7 of Notes with Jack. My name is Alan Fox, and I'm here with the 1990 Drama Desk award-winning director of The Piano Lesson,
No,
Jack.
not true. Not true. I didn't direct the piano lesson. There's a big problem with that. I'm listed often as a producer because those plays, when they were directed by Lloyd Richards
Sure.
at Yale, there was a consortium of theaters, and they went around the country, and we were one of the hosts.
Okay.
And so sometimes I'm listed as a producer. Lloyd Richards did that famous production of The Piano Lesson.
Got it. Okay.
And we
well,
were
I'm glad-
hosts. But worse than that,
Yeah.
there was a production after I left the Globe of Ellen Burstyn
Okay.
in I can't even remember the full title, the oldest living Confederate widow tells all or something. It's a one-woman show that
Sure.
they booked into the Globe. They came into New York and died in one night. And everybody says I did that show, and it's nice that it's humbling.
Yeah.
I can use a little of that,
Yeah.
but I had nothing to do with the damn thing. And then people say, "Oh, however, it's a remarkable career, but he did that terrible show with Ellen Burstyn, closed of the night." And I think, okay.
So wait. So let me actually get this straight, because I must have got. I have to get my.
You're not
fact
the only
team.
one. You're not the only one.
Because I guess so, because you hosted it at the Globe,
Yep.
you oftentimes get credited as being one of the producers, and because it ended up going to Broadway and winning these awards, it's become sort of a thing. But you are saying,
Each of the component parts that hosted it,
right?
we're listed in the credits. The artistic director and the managing director being producers.
Interesting.
And for
Okay.
most people, if they see my name, they think, well, he did it.
Right? Yeah, but you're a jack of all
we're
trades,
having,
man.
This is appropriate. We're having conceptual meltdown today. You know this, right?
Okay, talk to me, because we gotta get into it. Talk to me. I hear about this meltdown. We need to know more.
This is really tough.
All right, so quickly, we're talking about Ghosts.
We are talking about Ghosts.
You've been in previews for about
which is in previews now. And
right.
Jeremiah, how many previews have we done? 7?
11.
11 previews. It turns out the original concept was about actors coming into the theater with their scripts and their coats and stuff, starting to read, getting better. And then I had this idea that as they went into the play, excuse me, they sort of melted as actors into the actual people, and their clothing, their natural clothing that they wore to rehearsal would sort of, as they went in and out on the stage, exits and entrances, would sort of morph into the period clothing.
Sure.
So by the end of the show, you would have seen a group of actors go from rehearsal mode to full realization.
Right.
And it was, for me, I was at the time thinking this is a gesture I was making toward the quality of work that goes into everything that Lincoln Center has done for 30 years, 40 years, whatever
Sure.
it's been. They're changing over now. Andre's leaving. Lira Bessonnet is coming in. A whole new world is happening there. And this is the end of this. And I was part of that. And I thought, as a last parting gesture, I'm going to sort of open the whole thing on a larger level. Well, guess what?
Well, it's like an homage. Let's think about, it's like an homage to the process almost, right? It's
Exactly.
a little bit like we're doing here, where I think you and I both bond over this idea of really appreciating the process, and sometimes that's all there is.
Yeah.
So it's like in doing this work at the end of Lincoln Center's run, you want to give an homage to the process that is developing theater, because that's kind of what they do.
That's what they did, and did so beautifully for so long.
Okay.
And so I had the actors have their scripts at hand. And then as the play went along, they they carried their scripts, but they didn't use them. They were evident. They put them down on the table, they picked them up. And then there was a moment that actually is in the play where Regina, the maid, who's sort of flirting with Oswald, the young man, the young leading man, she's written that she comes in, picks up a watering can, and walks around the room, and then somebody says in French, "Je m'excuse," excuse me,
Yeah.
to signal to the kid that she's learned French.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is great. She has to come in anyway. I'm going to have her collect all the scripts and take them off, and that's the end of that.
Sure.
Nobody gets it.
Right.
Not only nobody gets it, I now begin to realize that the actors are being accosted by people saying, why don't you know your lines? And it's deeply upsetting to them because, as you probably know, there are productions that are being put together rather shallowly where television and film people come in and read scripts on the stage, don't learn their lines, and they're paying $500, $700 a ticket for this process that is, so they're feeling that they're being judged unfairly.
Yeah. So what's your, hold on, let's backtrack for just a second. What's your first, let's think about your primary concern. I'm guessing it's protection or the feeling of the actor, like, because there's two parts to this as I understand it.
Always.
Right.
It's always
so
the actors.
You're looking to protect the actors and actresses first.
Right.
Were they, when you first brought this idea to them, this was never a red flag to them, I'm guessing, that they would get this kind of response. And so when you first hear them coming to you saying this, what are you thinking? Like,
well, first of all, nobody did come to me for a long time.
Right.
I mean, as Jeremiah says, we did 11 performances. No one said a word to me about this.
Right.
And when I talked to about the concept originally with Andre and then with the designers and then getting the company together, everybody was sort of into it. They thought this is kind of cool and different, and it's not sort of square, and this will be interesting for the audiences to suddenly feel these things. Well, guess what? They don't get it.
Right.
And Andre was kind enough to remind me. I just called him and said, I need you to tell me.
Yeah.
Do I rip this out? Do I start out? What should I do?
Yeah.
And he said, and this is true, he said, well, the original concept, which had them physically morphing into the period, changed when, in fact, I saw the period costumes on the stage, which they made, and I didn't like them. They looked
interesting.
They looked too self-conscious. They looked too. I mean, the wonderful thing about the play is how modern it feels, how immediate it feels. You must admit that.
That was a big reaction of mine.
A lot of issues.
It's interesting. If I'm hearing you correctly, you took out. It's like there were sort of two. There were multiple prongs to this, and that we're going to have the scripts, and then also we're going to be getting into character. So it's telling it's a different way of storytelling to be changing the clothes as you're also with the scripts. It's like there's more to it versus like if it's just the scripts, when you start to take away a piece, suddenly it gets a little muddy.
I'm sitting here thinking to myself, it sounds better than it is. It's one of those things you think, oh, that's an interesting idea. I'd love to see that. Maybe you wouldn't. What I'm saying is I'm eating some crow here. You know, I'm sort of thinking I got to go tomorrow. I already had heard from Hamish Linkletter that he was very upset because he understood the audience was not getting it and they were feeling sort of ripped off and hostile toward him. I mean, he felt that the first scene, which is the scene in which they start rehearsing, was wasted for him. And he has 3 scenes in the show. So he was upset about that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is that sort of, how often does something like that come up? Where actors or actresses will, I don't mean in this show, I mean like in the past.
I don't remember this ever happening to me.
And do you think it comes, I mean, because it's, first off, I think it's so exciting to try stuff.
Yes.
It's the only way that anything good ever happens is for people to try stuff, right?
I have to figure out, look, here's where we are.
Yeah.
Something is wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
And enough people are confused or turned off. And as Andre said to me, just wrote to me a few minutes ago, he said, people don't care about the concept, they want to see the play.
Yeah.
And he even said to me, do you want to just stage it straight? And this is so painful to me because
Yeah.
I don't want to totally give up my passion, capitulate. On the other hand, I don't want to be an asshole and say, l'état c'est moi. This is my play. You know, I'm the president. I'll do it the way I want. I don't want to say that. I don't want to be. I don't want to just defend my principle because I'm embarrassed
Yeah.
that it's too sophisticated, too complicated, too unnecessary.
Well, that's what I want to say. And this is going to sound trite for me to come in and say some of the things I'm going to say, but the first thing I'm going to say is the answer is always the third rail. It's like I think sometimes we start, at least for me, I get pushback on the thing I was like, we fall in, the adage of killing your darlings, right? It's like the idea when you're writing and it's like kill your darlings, that sort of idea, right? But oftentimes when you're getting into the like creative, for me at least in the writing process, you're getting into it. That first pushback against the thing that maybe was my darling, oftentimes it's more of a pivot than ripping it out of the thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm sure that like getting into it with the company and working on it, because this is I'm thinking, and because I've heard you talk before on other productions, this is sort of where you thrive in that you are flexible enough to be changing. You are flexible enough to kind of be moving through it. And I don't know. I know that now, I mean, you told me before we started talking about it that it's raw. Now
Wow.
the rawness of it is always what makes us want to rip it out.
Look,
Does that make sense?
this is, yes, of course. And this is helpful to me, by the way.
Yeah.
Odd as it is to be going through this with somebody whose opinion I value and care about, who has worked with me creatively on something very personal.
Yeah.
So this is, we're right back
Yeah.
here in
Yeah.
previews out at Bay Street.
Yeah.
This is baby bathwater time.
Right.
Do I rip everything out and just do it? I don't think so. And here's why I don't think so. The modernity of the way the play starts is the point.
Yeah.
That the audience is not seeing people come out in period costumes, but in sort of neutral, beautiful neutral space with appropriately dressed, suggestively dressed, but not slavishly so.
Right.
So I don't want to pretend this is the way you do ghosts, because it isn't.
Right.
And I have a new translation and a very kind of, I don't know, edgy attack on the play. I love seeing the actors come into the space in modern clothes.
Yeah.
And I think I could simplify that in an almost stark way so that you would see these two actors take the script, put the script down, and be better again, and the whole thing explodes. And then I think you think, oh, they've found their way into it. I think I can keep that as a storytelling device that won't take you out of the show.
I'm thinking back now after seeing it, right? And I don't think, I always think to myself whenever I start getting notes like this, it's always about the muddy, like, is there a way of being a little, because I think sometimes when we're trying to do something unique or take a different spin on something, we kind of do it with I'm trying to think, and my body knows what I'm trying to do. We kind of do it with like a sort of like let me not really do too, let me guide it without being heavy handed. And people are
Yes.
like, I don't
Yes.
get it. Right.
Yeah.
And so and that's a very artistic thing to do of like, I'm just going to dance with it and you're going to get it. And people in the audience are like, I have no idea what this guy's trying to
That's
do.
exactly right.
So a lot of times the answer is being a little more direct with it. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yes.
so if you're trying, if you want the audience to know that this is a bit more of the process, homage to the process, or if there's something like that, because I think that what you're saying that I really agree with is that I don't think you want to lose the modernity aspect of it, because that's what someone like me who doesn't often go to the theater to see productions from the 1880s as much as I may end up liking them. It's like, that's sort of why I enjoyed it. Was it not feeling like just a straight, production of Ghost from a time period that I know very little about and don't really care that much about. The
There's
fact
one.
that it,
There's one
go
other.
ahead.
There's one other element
Yeah.
that when Billy Crudup comes into the play,
Mm.
he's partially dressed,
Yeah.
and there's a moment when it stops where he puts the collar on and the whole thing in the coat, and then she comes in, but they have their scripts at that point, which is confusing to the audience because the audience thinks, oh, they're insecure,
Right.
which has never occurred to me since they don't
Right.
refer to the script. But I guess people think, well, it's there because they don't know what the next line is.
Is that, are we sure that that is, I'm just going to say this. To me, that feels like a dumb thing. I think that may be what an actor or an actress is insecure about. That feels like a dumb note from someone in the audience. Like
Well,
that
people,
to me,
I don't want to be shitty, but people can be dumb, you know.
I
Let's,
know, but what I mean is I think they're saying that not because they're confused about the scripts, because they're not sure. Maybe it's the clarity of what you're trying to go for. Does that make sense? Of like, if it is an homage, it's like, is there a way of making that part a little bit more clear? Because
well, first of all, I'm just thinking he can come in fully dressed.
talking about Billy,
Yeah.
right?
I think if I did that, it would be why is it, yes, I have to change that. I have to take that out. I have to make a clean transition from the arrival of the actors and when the set explodes and shows itself, we're going through the looking glass and we
Yeah,
never come back.
right.
And I think if I do that and take all the peripheral things out, it's one flip. And I think the audience, I don't know, I have to think about this. I'm not being very helpful here. You are being helpful. I'm actually conceiving this as I'm going.
Yeah, but this is great. I mean, how lucky are we to be able to be on it, on the ride with you? And it's like
Well,
that idea. I mean, it's vulnerable for you to be talking about things like this right now, but I think that but it's cool, man, because I think that this is what people need to understand about the creative process. If
you
there's a
know,
young, go ahead.
well, it's just risky. I mean, it's risky. And I realize I have presumed upon an idea. I usually am better at this, but it is a very sophisticated idea. It is. And we didn't actually have it from the beginning anyway, because visually, in terms of the costumes, we couldn't bring it off. And maybe I'm holding on to something that I could just let go very, very simply. I have to sleep on this. I have to tell you the truth. We've talked about this. I'm
Yeah.
better the next day.
Oh,
I'm better the
for
next
sure.
day. You know,
Yeah.
I'm perfectly willing to sacrifice anything that I've done that is preventing the show from being as wonderful as it deserves to be. And I feel that about my actors,
Oh
basically.
yeah. Well, and that's the mark of, not like I'm blowing smoke up your butt because you don't need it, but that's the mark of anyone in a leadership position or in a creative position that has a successful sort of,
Yeah,
tenure and has a successful career, is that ability to not be precious with the things that maybe quote unquote we fell in love with.
yeah.
One other question I wanted to ask is when you first had that idea, was there anything about the play Ghosts that spoke to this sort of two, Was there anything about the hypocrisy or what was going on in Ghost that was also a commentary on the theater? Like, was there, because what I'm always trying to figure out when I have ideas that really I catch on to is there something my subconscious is trying to get me to see that I haven't quite caught on to yet consciously? And so a lot of times when I'm going back and editing stuff, it's like, man, I like this idea a lot. Why did I like it? Was it just because I thought I was clever? Or is there something here? Is there a layer to it that I'm, because even what you said about, if suddenly once we go through the looking glass, we're all there, that's already a step forward where people may not be exactly clear on what happens on one side of the looking glass, but then they're not carrying it with them through the rest of the play. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I have to be braver, more simply, in a very simplistic way. I have to be braver so the actors are doing something that the audience clearly gets. And I think I can do that.
Yeah.
I think I can do that. I'm resisting throwing everything out, starting over. I am. I just am.
Yeah.
It's not, that's not good enough for me.
Yeah.
And even though this was a difficult and overly articulated conceptual idea to begin with, there's a value in the audience meeting this on a modern level and then seeing it take wing. And if I don't keep referring to it, they'll get lost in the play, which is really what we want.
Right.
It's just the opening sequence that I've got. But I have an idea about that anyway. I mean, I have a really kind of interesting, brave idea that's highly theatrical that I think would be clearer if it were bigger and simpler and not so subtle.
I agree. I think that making sure everyone that's something, because I feel it all the time too, which is I don't want people to know I'm trying to do something clever. I want them to just get it, right? And then what you do is you out clever yourself and no one gets it and they're just like, what is this mess?
I talk a lot about trying not to get in the way. I'm very big about saying, as a director, I try not to do that. And here I am doing it. Right. So I've got to stop doing it and figure out how to be consistent with a very sort of maybe helpful tossing of the dice on the table.
Yeah.
But not rub everybody's face in it for 2 hours or whatever the fuck it is.
Right. Well, and also though, but the only reason you quote unquote got in the way could be because you pulled back from the initial idea.
Well, I did.
But that's what I mean. It's like if the costume, I know you said because you didn't like how they look visually, but like to pull back makes it more confusing. So you maybe weren't in the way initially, but then by pulling back, it's just finding what that gauge is before it muddies it.
Picasso, the great quote from Picasso is, have the courage of the murderer or the surgeon.
Yeah. No,
and that's where I am right now.
I
have a knife in my hand and I've got to figure out how to use it.
Yeah. Well, you're going to use it well. And like you said, I love what you said about I'm always better the next day.
I am.
It's there have been times, man, where like no window was high enough when I got certain notes back. Do you know what I mean? Like there's been times where I've been on a lot of ledges. Yeah. And it's so interesting how when you sleep on it, the magic finds you.
It never gets. You can be at this end of a huge career and still have this shit happening to you.
But and
and I think it's kind of great.
It's so great. I mean,
I'm willing to face this. Is what I'm saying. I apologize that I didn't see it, but now I have to be a pro and fix it.
And you're going to.
You'll see.
You know what I mean?
We'll see.
You will fix it one way or the other. You know what I mean? It will be fixed, and you will fix it.
No, I have to face them tomorrow at 1:00.
Yeah.
And work this out, and I will.
So how do you? I don't know if this may be one of those answers where you tell me I don't know till I do it. But how will you initially start this with the actor or actresses? Do you go in with humility, or do you
Oh,
go in with? Obviously, you're gonna,
oh no, no.
obviously,
I'm going in saying I just woke up. Sorry, I'm the last
right?
one of the party. You've been going through some difficulty here. We're going to stop it, and you're going to help me do it. I'm going to make
Yeah,
some suggestions, and you're going to say that's better, and I'm going to say what about this, and you're going to say maybe not so good.
right, right.
And together we'll get from 1 o'clock to 5, and
Yeah,
then we'll have a break, and then we'll put it in front of the audience, and they'll tell us.
yeah.
They always tell you.
Hmm. Have there been any times where you? I doubt it. I probably know the answer to this. I was gonna say, have there been any times where you've said no, the audience is wrong, and put your
No,
head down
no,
and kept going?
the audience is never wrong. They may
Yeah,
be
that's what I.
disappointing. They may be asleep,
Yeah,
but they paid. No,
yeah.
no, you're doing it for them.
Right.
You're not doing it as an intellectual exercise to
Yeah,
show how much better you are or how much cleverer you are.
yeah.
That's why I get in trouble with directors who reinterpret plays. I think, well, why didn't you write your own goddamn play? Why are you marking this one up? And here I am, guilty,
Hmm.
clearly. So I've got to take 2 steps back and have another sleepless night and then fix it to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Do stay tuned in.
Man, that's such a man. What an interesting day to catch you on.
Yeah, you
Uh,
can say that again.
yeah. Well, what's something good that's going on? You told me you got your teeth cleaned. That's exciting.
I
What else is
did get
going
my
on?
teeth cleaned.
Yeah.
I
Looking
did,
good.
and I'm home here. I came
Yeah.
home and lifted my head out of the trough. Much easier for me to be dealing with this issue here than in
Yeah.
New York in front of it.
Right.
That's
Right.
really a gift.
Yeah. So you're gonna go back in tomorrow. And how
And I
many
have
do you?
you to talk to, and then I'm going to have dinner with Marsha Mason tonight, who's also
Yeah.
very close to me. Both of you
Yeah.
have seen the show. Both of you are
Yeah.
being very helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It'll be
stay
figured out.
tuned.
Stay tuned. All right. Well, you know what? Why don't we call it a wrap for today? Just
Oh, I
because of
think
that. Since
so.
you think it's the one.
You
All
don't
right.
want me to cry, do you?
No, Jack. Amazing as always. Thank you. You're gonna figure it out. You're gonna figure it out.
And
Everyone, you always do.
you'll be the first to know, too.
I look forward to it, man. All right. Well, thank you for your time as always. We love you, and
I
we'll
love you
we'll
back.
check back in next week, and we'll hear how it
Okay.
goes. All right. Bye bye.
Wish me well.
All the well in the world, all
Thanks.
the luck in the world. Bye.
Bye.